Tommy, that part of the week again, mate, where we get stuck into some numbers, get stuck into some betting. We won't talk about the multi just yet because we've gone very, very close. We'll get into that a little bit later. Shortened round this week, only 6 games to pick from with a handful of teams on the bye. We're just going to preview 2 games that I've picked out. Friday night, your old club, the Brisbane Lions, take on St Kilda up at the Gabba. Enormous game for 2 sides that are quickly running out of chances to make the top 8. How'd you see the Lions last week in that win over the Dogs?
Yeah, much better. Just look more complete across the board. And the Western Bulldogs, they're a bit the same. You flip a coin and you're not sure what you're going to get from both of them. So the Lions, I thought, looked like they were back to their best and take on St Kilda, who are as boring team in the competition to watch. And Ross Lyon's always coached like that, and he gets the best out of his players and defensively, but I think they'll get split open at the Gabba. I think the Lions will run amok. You
stole the words out of my mouth. St Kilda have won back-to-back games against West Coast and the Suns, both in pretty low-scoring fashion, less than convincing to say the least. I think the glass still looks half empty still. But it was nice to see the Lions back amongst the goals last week. The Hippo kicking a 6-goal bag. Nobody saw that one coming. Look, we know the Saints can't score big. It's just not really in their makeup. They're a defensive-minded a team. 3rd fewest goals allowed in the league, though. Can the punters get around the likes of Danaher to kick another bag, or is this a potential danger game for Brisbane?
I don't think so. I think Brisbane know where they want to get to. Their troops are slowly getting back. I think they're primed themselves. They limped into the bye realistically, off a couple of bad losses, and then I think they rebounded really well. And I think they'll be primed for Friday night footy. I think they'll blow St Kilda away. I think just the way the ground plays, their forwards are starting to look a bit more damaging as well in that front half. As you said, Hipwood probably played his best game of his career, which he needed to do off a pretty quiet year, to be quite frank. St Kilda, I don't think we'll be able to match them at the Gabba. It's a really hard ground to defend. You win the centre square bounce, you deep forward straight away, and then Harris Andrews and the defence press it in and lock the footy in the front half. So St Kilda won't be able to get their way through that press, I don't think. And I think the Lions will, I think, when you started to talk about St Kilda and not giving up scores, I think it'll still go overs, but Brisbane will do the bulk of the lifting in that game.
Sounds like we're both in agreement there. A couple of trends worth noting. Brisbane are 2-4 at the line as the home favourite against St Kilda. Last 4 meetings have all gone under the total, so the trends suggest it could be a low-scoring one, but we'll see. Let's fast forward to Sunday, another one of your old clubs, Port Adelaide, the club that you set the foundations for. Only top 8 fixture on the slate this week, both coming off a loss. GWS, controversial loss last week to my Hawks. I know you feel very strongly about the Sicily free kick, but we won't get into that. And Porter coming off a bye after being dismantled basically by Carlton a fortnight ago. Scoring in this one will be very fascinating. The Giants have found kicking goals quite difficult over the last month in a real sort of dry patch. 7 of their last 13 games between these two have gone under the total. Sounds like Rosie could be back in the side for Port. Under, over, and do you think Port are good value? I think they're around $2.45 head-to-head right now.
Yeah, I think Port Adelaide are good value. We know that the Giants finished their season last year in that final, but the Giants are just too inconsistent, and within games too inconsistent up and down, where Port Adelaide, yes, they got beaten against the Blues, but you look at that form now and it stacks up for Carlton. I think Sydney are probably ranked 1, Carlton are almost ranked 2. So to say that they went down, and convincingly they did, they got blown away in that last quarter, but the first 3 quarters was highly competitive in that contest. So I think Port, they're victims of themselves, the way they play. They get themselves up, they continue to finish top 4 and just can't quite get it done at the end of the season. But I think they beat the Giants, so I think the value for them is really good. I would tend to go unders as well on the history of these two teams that you talk about, but Port Adelaide's biggest issue is their inability to score. They dominate the inside 50s, the ball lives in their front half, but they just don't get bang for their buck. So I would lean towards, probably the unders and Port Adelaide.
Port are a very inaccurate team in front of goal, especially this season. Speaking of inaccuracies, though, our multi last week, we've gone bloody close again, mate. 3 out of 4 legs. You laughed at me when I took North to cover against West Coast, plus 20.5, came good. And then I took the Swan.
Well done.
Yep. Let me hear it. And then I took the Swans to cover against the Cats. That was a bit touch and go until that final turn, but we got that home. You went back to the well as usual, the Bont, 2+ goals. Easy
and
money.
I think you will find that I actually said in the podcast that I'm not sure if he'll get tagged, but if they do, they'll send Berry to him, which
happened.
Which happened.
Nostradamus,
So,
Rockcliffe.
I don't know. If you want the inside scoop, just come to the show.
Well, that's why we do this whole segment. And then, look, I'll let you explain the rest.
Well, Elliot Yeo, slid into his DMs on, was that Saturday? Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. Nah, West Coast, he never looked likely, did he? 25. And then all of a sudden he had this burst in the last quarter, a bit like West Coast. I thought he'd play like that and they'd be up and about and beat North Melbourne. But once he got going, they got back into the game. And I think he finished on 23. We had him 25 plus. So
brutal beat.
I mean, if he had got that handball out when he gave away that shocking free kick from the umpire, so we've finished, 2 disposals off a $12 or $13 multi. So I think we bounce back this week.
Hopefully, mate. Well, look, I'm going to take some of your advice on board here. I'm taking Brisbane to cover against St Kilda on Friday night, minus 27.5 at the line. Really like that. And I've also gone Port Adelaide to cover against GWS. So I'm in agreement with everything you said. Earlier on, you are going player markets again?
Yeah, I'll stick to the players. You go to the team. So I'll stay with the same game. Port Adelaide take on the Giants. I think Dan Houston, 25 plus. He's had another really good season across half back. I think the Giants will get enough inside 50s. Houston uses the ball so well. So they look for him to get the footy in his hands. And Will Hoskin-Elliott to kick 2+ in that game against North Melbourne. I think he'll bob up. They've sort of got a makeshift forward line at certain times. And he's always good for 1 or 2, I think.
Fingers crossed. So to recap, we've got Brisbane to cover against St Kilda, Hoskin-Elliott 2+ for the Pies. We've got Port Adelaide to cover against GWS, and in that same game, Dan Houston 25+ disposals, $17.09 for this one, which is better than I thought we'd get.
Yeah, I think the players, they were both about 230, so they a bit of juice there for us.
Boosted it. That multi will be available in the special section under AFL on Ed's app. Good chat as always, Rocky.
You're on your right.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.